There was this really skinny horse at an auction. He looked terrible, you could see his ribs, and he had scars all over his body. Nobody wanted to buy him because he looked so beaten up and sad. Ezekiel Marsh was a poor farmer who was about to lose his farm. His crops had died, and he needed a horse to help him work the land. But he only had $7.50 left to his name. All the good horses cost way more money than he had. The auctioneer tried to sell the skinny horse. He started asking for $5, then for dollars, but nobody wanted him. Finally, Ezekiel raised his hand and said he'd pay $3. People laughed at him and thought he was crazy for buying such a broken-down animal, but something weird happened. When Ezekiel spoke up, the horse lifted his head and looked right at him. Their eyes met across the dusty yard, and Ezekiel saw something special in the horse's eyes. It wasn't sadness, it was intelligence. After Ezekiel bought the horse, they started walking home. But the horse wouldn't go the normal way. Every time they got to the main road, the horse would stop and stare at the hills. He kept trying to go toward the Rocky Mountains instead of to the farm. Ezekiel thought the horse was just tired and confused. He knew those hills had been picked clean by gold miners years ago. There was nothing up there but rocks and snakes, so he pulled the horse toward home. The horse finally followed him, but he kept looking back at the hills like he was leaving something important behind. When they got to Ezekiel's old barn, the horse went inside but wouldn't relax. He stood facing the hills all night, like he was waiting for something. The next morning, Ezekiel woke up and found the horse was gone. The barn door was open, and there were no signs of a fight. The horse had just left on his own. Ezekiel was heartbroken because that $3 was all the money he had left. But then he looked up at the hills and saw his horse standing there, waiting for him. The horse wasn't running away, he was calling Ezekiel to follow him. So Ezekiel started climbing up into the rocky hills. It was hot and hard work, but the horse waited patiently for him. When Ezekiel finally caught up, the horse started walking deeper into the mountains, like he knew exactly where he was going. They walked for over an hour through rough terrain that looked like nobody had been there in years. Finally, the horse stopped next to some old wooden posts sticking out of the ground. These were the remains of an old mining operation that had been abandoned long ago. The horse started digging at the ground with his hoof near the biggest wooden post. He wasn't digging randomly, he was digging at one specific spot, like he knew something was buried there. Ezekiel got down on his hands and knees and started digging where the horse was pawing. His fingers hit something hard and metal. He dug deeper and found an iron handle covered in rust. It was a trapdoor that had been hidden under dirt and weeds for many years. The horse stepped back like his job was done. He had led Ezekiel exactly where he needed to be, but Ezekiel felt scared about opening the door. Whatever was down there had been hidden for a reason. The trapdoor opened with a loud creak. Ezekiel looked down into a dark hole with a wooden ladder going deep underground. The air smelled dusty and metallic. The horse nudged him gently, encouraging him to climb down. Even though he was scared, Ezekiel knew he had to go down. He had no money left, and winter was coming. He climbed down the creaky ladder about 20 feet until his feet touched the ground. He lit a match and held it up. The light showed him a tunnel that went deep into the hillside. There were old wooden beams holding up the ceiling and train tracks on the floor for mining carts. But what made Ezekiel gasp were the walls. They were covered with thick veins of pure silver. There was more silver than he had ever seen in his life. Enough to make someone incredibly rich. The match burned his fingers and went out. He lit another one and walked deeper into the tunnel. The silver got thicker as he went further in. Then, he saw something carved into a wooden beam. JM 1847, and below that, desperate words scratched into the wood. They're coming. Hidden the deeds. God help whoever finds this place. Someone had been here before and had been scared enough to hide everything and seal it up. Ezekiel also noticed fresh horse prints in the dust, like other horses had been down there before carrying heavy loads. He lit another match and saw a pile of canvas bags stacked against the wall. They weren't empty. But then he heard something that made his heart race, the sound of horses riding fast toward them from above ground. Ezekiel quickly tore open the first bag. Silver coins spilled everywhere, hundreds of them. Each bag contained more money than he had ever imagined. He stuffed his pockets with as many coins as they would hold and grabbed small bags. He could hear voices above ground now, men calling to each other and searching for something. He climbed up the ladder as fast as he could with all the heavy silver weighing him down. When he got to the surface, his horse was already backing away from the entrance, acting nervous. 3 well-dressed men on horseback appeared just as Ezekiel managed to close the trapdoor and kick dirt over it. He hid behind a big rock with his horse and listened to the men talking. They were looking for the old Meridian claim and talking about Jenkins who had buried his silver stash before Apache Indians got him. These weren't just treasure hunters. They were businessmen with expensive guns who were looking for legal papers that would give them ownership of the mine. One of them said they had been searching these hills for 20 years. Another said that if they couldn't find the silver, they would buy Ezekiel's farm at auction next month and tear the hills apart to find it. The men split up to search the area. Ezekiel waited until they were gone, then his smart horse led him home through a hidden canyon path so they wouldn't be seen. That night, Ezekiel couldn't sleep with all the silver coins hidden under his shirt. At dawn, he rode to the county courthouse in town. He wanted to file a legal mining claim for the land where they found the silver. The records clerk thought Ezekiel was crazy for wanting to claim that worthless land, but he filled out the paperwork anyway. It cost $5 to file the claim. Ezekiel paid with 5 of his silver coins. The clerk was surprised by how pure and valuable the silver was. When Ezekiel left the courthouse with his legal papers, he saw the 3 men from yesterday talking to the bank president across the street. One of them looked right at him and recognized him. Ezekiel knew he was in trouble. His horse seemed to sense the danger and took back roads to get them home safely. But when they got to the farm, 2 more well-dressed men were waiting on his porch with their own papers. These men said they represented business interests and knew about his mining claim. They offered him $1,000 in cash to sell them his claim, more money than most people saw in their whole lives. But Ezekiel looked at his wise horse and said no. The men's friendly smiles disappeared. They warned him that the claim belonged to people who knew how to protect their investments. As they rode away, Ezekiel realized he was in real danger. The attack came at midnight. Ezekiel woke up to his horse screaming in the barn, not a scared sound, but an angry fighting sound. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside. 5 men with torches and guns surrounded the barn. They had come to burn it down, destroy his claim papers, and make the mine disappear forever. But they hadn't expected his horse to fight back. The horse had kicked open his stall door and was rearing up on his back legs, striking at the attackers. Even though he was thin, he fought like a warrior protecting something precious. One attacker was already lying unconscious with blood on his head. When someone yelled to shoot the horse, the amazing animal grabbed a burning torch in his teeth and threw it at the pile of hay the attackers had stacked to burn down the barn. Instead of spreading the fire, he scattered the kindling before it could catch. The horse was protecting the barn and everything in it. The battle was short but fierce. When it was over, 3 attackers were unconscious. 1 was limping away, and 1 had run off completely. The barn was still standing, and both Ezekiel and his horse were saved. By morning, news had spread across 3 counties. The farmer who bought a worthless horse had found the richest silver mine in the territory's history. Claim jumpers, real miners, and treasure seekers came from hundreds of miles away, all wanting their piece of Ezekiel's silver mine. But Ezekiel had learned something important from his horse. Sometimes the most valuable things come to people who see worth where others see nothing. Sometimes being patient and loyal matters more than being strong or fast. Ezekiel hired guards to protect his mine, but he never sold his claim. The silver mine produced wealth for 20 years, making him the richest man in 3 states. He built a beautiful mansion on the hill where the mine was hidden, but he never forgot his small farm where it all started. His horse lived in luxury for the rest of his days, eating the finest oats and grazing in fields of green grass. People came from everywhere to hear the story of the horse that made his owner a millionaire, but Ezekiel never told them the complete truth. He never revealed that his horse had known exactly where the silver was hidden from the very first day. Some secrets were worth keeping. That horse hadn't just led him to silver. He had taught Ezekiel that true wealth comes from recognizing value that other people overlook, from seeing potential where others only see problems, from knowing that sometimes the things everyone else rejects are exactly what you need to change your life forever.